Welcome to Teaching in Scrubs.
Hi, Laurel. It's nice to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Oh, shit.
Oh, shit. This is
Yeah.
a family podcast or YouTube show, whatever it is, but clinical's next week.
Next week. Yeah, I can do my Bluey reference. Oh, biscuits. It's coming. We got to send out our welcome letters today.
That's right. That's right. Um, yeah, no, I'm on my third cold sore in 3 weeks. So, which is not just because of clinical, it's just holidays and all that. But yeah, there's a lot. So
Yeah. Yeah. And now I love your roller coaster reference, right? There's like this feeling in the pit of our stomach as we go up to the top.
yeah, so on my analogy, we just got to the top and we're at the suspended part where your like feet are dangling before the drop, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we're
And we
here.
scream.
Yes, yes. We're here today to talk people down from the that feeling and to help support kind of if you are in a position where your clinical is next week and you're not feeling completely prepared, A, join the team, B, we're here for you. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's helpful to start with our things that jump to mind that it's like we got to get this done to feel ready
yeah.
for next week. So for me, I have to have a roster, right? Because I always am worried
Yeah.
that I'm going to lose someone that first day. Like
Right.
go and jump into it and be like, oh, there's someone missing, you know? So the roster is really important to me. Even before that, do I have all my access codes, right? Things change on
Yeah.
the unit like every 3 weeks. And
Right.
so does everything work? Does my badge work? EHR, med
Right.
dispensing, glucose, all the things, right?
Right.
Can I function? And so that kind of leads into not just making sure they're all up to date, but actually going over to the unit, kind of doing a walkthrough,
Yeah.
getting myself ready, and then getting the unit ready. Like I feel like the more I can make a welcoming environment for the students and myself and have the staff feel ready for everybody rather than
Yeah.
being like, we're here on day one.
Yeah. My kind of top items of focus right now are maybe a little more internal because getting back to the feeling of being at the top of the roller coaster, I'm thinking, first of all, I don't have to know everything for the whole semester, right? And this, I think, is especially important when you're new to this because it can feel so overwhelming. I just need to know what I'm going to do next week. I just need to be hit a week ahead, right? Which doesn't feel great, but truthfully, if I have read the syllabus and I know the clinical schedule, then I really just kind of need to know what do I need to do next week with my students in that setting, right? So that's my first one is to kind of just recognize I don't have to have it all figured out. I just kind of need to figure out
Mhm.
next week. My next one is really getting to kind of that anxiety part. It's not about me, it's about the students, right? I promise that they are more anxious or more nervous or more worried than I am, no
Yeah,
matter
always.
where they are in their clinical journey. They don't know me, they're getting graded. So it is not a matter of me showing up so that I look like I know what I'm talking about. It's me showing up and creating a supportive environment. So,
Yeah, that's really key. Having a plan for the first week. It just really does help you walk into that roller coaster, kind
yeah,
of kind of knowing how it's going to go. Like you've ridden it before.
right, right. Um, And then I think the other kind of most critical piece for me is making sure that I have a sense of what the students' pre-work and post-work is at any point in time so that I am clear on expectations so that they can be clear on expectations. And what I mean is if I'm like, I don't know, it's really busy, or I'm trying to figure this out too, that just sets a tone of like, whoa, I'm nervous now as a student because you don't know what you're talking about, right? So
Right,
even if I don't know
right.
what I'm talking about, if I know, okay, this is what your post work is and this is what you need to do, what they really want to know is, okay, you're in charge and you're in charge of my grade, so you have a sense of what I have to do. So Just having clarity on what is required
Mhm.
by them, I think is important. So
Yeah,
those are probably my
100%.
top three.
Right. And that's one of their biggest questions, right? Going into that, what's going
Yeah.
to be expected of me every week?
Yeah.
And, what are you approachable? I think that's the other point of you having that as your top threes, which I love, is you're setting that tone of approachability, right?
Yeah.
And high expectations, but I'm going to, help facilitate the experience and help you get there. Yeah.
Right,
So
right.
you're setting that tone. Right. And then my style is very, you know, this is the expectation. And I am a little stone faced, but I'm also like, I want to make sure that we're all safe for what we're walking into, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm also like, but you can come and ask me questions.
Right. Yeah, you're
I
right.
want
There's
you
a
to do
fine
that. Yeah.
balance. And I don't need to be like everybody needs to be
Yeah.
like, hey, welcome to clinical, because you're totally right. Um, there's
Well,
a lot to be said for creating like an atmosphere of high expectations, and that's of
absolutely.
critical importance as well.
Yeah, yeah. But in a way, like you said, where everybody can take a breath and focus on what you need to instead of just being awake all night the night before because they're
Right.
terrified of the person grading them the next day, right? Like that's what we want to avoid.
Right, right. Okay, so if you are heading into clinical, starts in a week, what are you doing, Sarah Craig, right now?
Hmm.
The week
Well,
before.
right, yeah. Crafting the welcome letter, really hitting my, top three. But then I am somebody that has to pack a week ahead of time when I go on a
Mm-hmm.
trip. So it's
Okay.
the same thing for me going into clinical, right? It's very similar to my nursing bag for working like a 13-hour shift.
Yeah.
That bag had to be packed, and I had to have the things that I needed because then I just felt like I was rolling in on top of the world. And so it's the same with my clinical instructor bag. I've got everything I need as far as my notes, anything I took notes on from the course team that were really important. Um, I make an agenda because that keeps me on track the first day, and I give it to the students because honestly, after about an hour, everybody's eyes glaze over if we're not like actively doing stuff. So
Right.
I always have something where they can take notes on it, that we can all be held accountable to as the day goes on.
Yeah.
And some of those assignments we've talked about in other videos, that's just kind of my intro to that. But I do have a clear agenda. I feel like that helps with anxiety and nerves too, because
Mm-hmm.
I know that they are stressed walking in that first day. And you lose focus if you have too
Right.
much of that. And so doing the agenda helps me also feel like I have a plan for the first week. And it's simple stuff like, here's what I want you to bring. Here are the things that we're going to do and that you're expected to know versus, things you're going to see for the first time. And here's when we're going to like eat,
Right.
like simple things like that. And then what are our deliverables for the day? I always make
Yeah.
sure I include that. Where are we going to meet? What's my cell phone number? So that agenda and schedule are really important to me, kind of help set the tone again, so that we all know what the plan is for the day. And then as far as packing my bag, the other things that are in there, I just have to show I brought props today. I have a bag. I've never taken a sticker off of this. I've had this for like a decade. But it's one of
Stickers
those little things.
permanently melded into the plastic
Yes,
now.
and it's hot pink because I lose stuff because I'm trying to go in 10 different directions,
Yeah.
and I keep it somewhere central in one of the alcoves on the unit. That has to be in there. Inside, I have my roster, my assignment sheet, my play-by-play grid that we've talked about, where
Mm-hmm.
I make notes and highlight, and I print them for the whole semester, because it's really important for me to have my students' names on there and just
Yep.
something to work with. I have it electronic in case I forget it. I always forget it at least twice a semester. Um, and then also in there is like a protein bar in case I forget my lunch,
Yeah.
water bottle, right? Because once you're on the unit, it is so hard to yourself travel to get any of those things later on. And then kind of the normal things you have in your nurse work bag,
Yeah.
stethoscope, those other important pieces that if I don't have a locker where I'm at, I kind of have to transport back and forth.
Right. Right.
And yeah, once I have that bag packed and I have it somewhere I'm not going to forget it, that helps a tremendous amount to kind of allay my anxiety. I feel like,
Yeah.
okay, ready, I
Yeah.
have a plan, my bag is packed, I'm not going to forget anything and be frazzled that first morning.
Right. Um, couple thoughts. My version of the bag is I write on a post-it note that actually now I just have a note on my phone. Like it's basically like a little checklist every morning before clinical that I can go, I have my badge, I have a water bottle, I have a plan for a snack or lunch, right? Like, and it's kind of my way to go, okay, I have all my things, right? Because
Mhm.
I've headed out without the badge before, right?
Right,
Can't do
right.
that with that as a clinical faculty.
Yeah. And let's be real, people are texting you because you're also a coordinator.
Right,
Students are texting you. It's so easy to walk out the
right.
door with something.
I also wanted to talk about the agenda really quick in case people kind of wonder what that is. I do the same thing. I don't give mine to my students, but I love the idea of doing that at least in the beginning. So there's like a roadmap for everybody. But I do that for every single clinical day. And now that I've been teaching for multiple semesters, I can go back to the agenda day one from last year and go, oh, it's kind of already done. So sometimes it might seem like some work, but it pays off because you've thought through that before. But for me, it's just my list of things I want to make sure I cover. So what am I going to cover in pre-conference? What do I want to make sure I say in huddle to everybody? This is our day one of our semester. This is our level of student, right? Um, and then what do I want to make sure I cover throughout the day? And meaning make sure everybody has access, like on day one or whatever needs to be done or managed on any particular clinical day. And then what do I want to make sure I don't forget to ask in post conference? But I think having something like that for me is just my roadmap for every day.
Yeah, I love that. Roadmap, checklist,
Yeah,
just to stay focused and get there on time and then get ready before your students get there.
yeah, yeah. What else? What other things are we thinking?
I think the other big things, is there anything else from the school? Like we have a faculty orientation, right?
Yeah,
But if you don't have that, making sure that you're doing your connections with the course team. And again, with the clinical site, because sometimes it's not always the site where you work. And so
right,
making sure that you have a clear onboarding plan for yourself and your team, and that there aren't any like key updates from the school you're working with. I think that's really helpful. And sometimes you kind of have to navigate that, right? Because it changes from semester to
right,
semester.
right.
Kind of balancing the clinical setting with the academic setting can be really important.
Yeah. Um, I think that yeah, and that's helpful too. That's the day though. That's the day that we know can feel really overwhelming for people, especially newer clinical faculty, because your program might be going, and then this is important, and this is important, and you leave going, wait, what's most important? So,
I just want to
um,
know what to do next week.
right, right, which goes back to you don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to know what the plan is for day one. So getting granular, what is the plan for day one? Is it just that we are getting comfortable on our unit and or in our setting and maybe meeting a patient, doing some vitals, or are we supposed to go do full assessments and do like what is the goal there, right? So that helps drive a lot of it, right? And then also recognizing that once you get there, you have capable humans you are working with, right? So as long as they feel supported and that you are going to support them when they come to you and say, I don't know what to do, they're going to get there and kind of do their thing, right? So like I have a scavenger hunt that is really helpful on the first day because there's a lot, it's a new unit to everybody. So go find these things, go find blue chucks pads, go find gloves, right? Go find where the wipes are, where the shower cap is, where toothpaste is, where EKG leads are,
Mhm.
a whole host of things. And I have tried to give everyone a tour in the past, and I literally have students who are just like nodding off. Now I just get in the middle and I go, here's the scavenger hunt, go. And it's so much more empowering for them. And so then I'm like, okay, I can take a deep breath and I don't have to give a tour. I can let these people manage it on their own right in the beginning too. So,
Mhm.
plus you have really capable nurses who are really excited often to have students. So it's
Mhm.
not always on you to create all of the fun for every moment of the day, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good scavenger hunt is so helpful for that first day. And then you have smaller groups that you can get to know better. work with,
Yeah.
and kind of really hit some of those micro goals that you have for the first day, right? Because everything you're doing that first day is really trying to help set up some structure, right? And set up that environment as a learning environment, but also a very fast-paced environment that we really want to make sure you have the basics of, and also kind of, so they have a frame of reference and know what to expect the next week and kind of start to understand the routine of the day, especially if they're, newer learners. And I think that's so critical. A couple years ago, we had a weird schedule mix up where we couldn't go and do our normal like sim schedule and then hospital schedule. So we had to go to the hospital day one. We were like, oh, this makes it more real. Let's do this
Yeah.
from now on. And so everything you're doing that day is really grabbing their attention, but also giving them the tools for success for the rest of the semester.
Yeah.
And knowing, I love what you said. It's they need to drive some of that. You just have to provide some of the framework for it. And the empowerment piece, that's so good. That helps them feel less anxious the next time they come in.
Yeah. The other thing that I always share on day one is I tell them I'm nervous too, right? Like I kind of start off one of my icebreakers in the morning because at some point you're going to want to do that is just go, who are you and who are you? And I am me. Let me tell you about who I am, right? Just to get to know each other. But I always start with, let's talk about how we're feeling. Let's recognize like this is stressful, but yet it's fun and exciting. But I always share that I'm nervous. And I share why, and I share it's usually because I want you guys to have a really great experience.
Yes.
And of course I want you to like me, right? But I also want this to be really meaningful to you. So I am nervous, and that is okay, right? So I think that's totally fair to share. Um, we talked about, oh, well, so what do you think the right timing is of getting a letter out to students? Because I think, well, so we talked about kind of knowing what the expectations are for that first day. Um, we talked about communication from understanding what your program is sharing with you.
Mhm.
But like in terms of you communicating with your students, I think that's super important too. What's your experience on what the best timing is for that?
Yeah, I think at least a week before. Everybody's school schedule is different, but especially if you have more complexity to your schedule, getting it out as soon as possible is so helpful so that you don't have any conflicts. And so
Hmm.
that welcome letter is a way to say, like, here's what we're doing today and where we're meeting and what time and what you need. And so yeah, the week ahead of time, or at least kind of a couple of days, right? Because you got to think about students are just reopening their email as they're coming back and doing, move back in and that kind of thing. And so,
Right.
I think at minimum, as long as you're getting it out like 3 days before or 2 days before, the night before is kind of hard. That's when I've noticed
Yeah.
on the course professor side, you start having students reaching out like, I haven't heard from them, so 2 days, 2 to 3 days before is probably ideal, like where everybody's looking at it. And I
Right.
always put in my welcome letter and text your friends that are in this group, because we haven't started our group chat yet. So, like, if I do that, I
Yeah.
know everybody's getting it in some form or
I
another.
did that a few years ago, and I just omitted the person who was the bottom of my roster
Right.
and got a really kind, but yet like, well, I panicked because like a nice message going, "Hi, I think I'm in your clinical group," and I was just mortified. I felt
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
bad.
But
So,
that happens all the time because rosters change and people's,
yeah,
schedules change. And so sometimes you don't have the most updated list either. And
right,
so, yeah, it's so important to be like, if you see someone missing or,
yeah.
text
So
everybody.
my little pearl there is, well, let's check. I was going to say my little pearl is to say, text me that you got this. And I put it in
Yeah.
yellow at the very bottom, like text me that you received this so that I know you'll be there. And then I will set up a group chat based on that. That helps me with figuring out who didn't get it, right? Or who's
Yeah,
not
that
checking
is
their
very
email.
smart. Very smart. Because
Um,
then if someone's missing the first morning, you have a quick way to get in touch.
yeah. Um, let's just talk about really briefly what's in that welcome email.
I think I just, give clear information about what's going on that day, where
Okay.
we're meeting. Is it at the school? Is it at the coffee shop? Is it, at our central location before we go out into different sites?
Right. Like, yeah, I'm thinking some people might be like, what am I going to put in a welcome email? But yeah, I mean, it can be as simple as, here's where to show up, here's what to wear, here's what to bring. It can be more rah-rah of welcome, here's my background, right? I tend to figure out that people aren't reading my really long ones, even though I love to write them and say, here's everything you need to know about me, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But what I also find is helpful in that is to tell them what's going to be due afterwards so that because by the end of day one, everybody's just drained. And so not a lot of people are really taking in new information about all the stuff that is due. So um, that's usually where I actually send a letter out every week, which might sound, I don't know, maybe a lot of people do this, but it's week two. Here's what we're doing. Here's our focus, and here's what's going to be due afterward, right? So
Mhm.
it's just kind of
Right.
helps me know that I've communicated to people. But
That's another really nice thing about the welcome letter. It kind of sets the format,
hmm
the tone for the semester of like,
yeah,
we're going to have some pre-brief communication, but then I expect you to come prepared with whatever that is. And then here's what's due afterwards. And here's what we're doing during the time,
right, right,
knowing that it will be dynamic and change
right,
every time.
right. The last thing I'm thinking about as I kind of establish this tone is and kind of figure out how I approach this first week is making sure that I've got a good plan for feedback and incorporating providing feedback to students. And I think that it's reasonable to get through the first week and go, oh, phew, I did it, right? And I think that's totally fair. But as soon as you've taken that breath, it is also time to go, okay, the after work is to make sure that I am providing formative feedback to my students. And so my process is, along with taking some extemporaneous notes throughout any clinical day, like we've talked about, is to sit down and do a brain dump of how, and I do this after every clinical, but I think it's important in the first one is um, how things go, like my personal brain dump. No one's going to see these notes, but Sarah seems super confident, and this Laurel seems a little nervous. And so as things progress, I know like, oh, I saw that in week one. That's not a new thing to me, right? Or that's consistent. And it helps me understand progression of students and making sure that when we do have someone who needs some extra support, that we can jump onto that in early weeks. And having those notes each week is also really helpful when it's time in a couple days to go fill out a weekly evaluation
Mhm.
and share kind of what people's strengths are and what they need to work on. So, um, and the last thing I'll say about feedback is just making sure that we are doing that regularly and timely for our students. Like my commitment to students is making sure I will get them something before we go to the next, we meet again, right? I don't think it's fair to have somebody go for a couple clinicals and not hear from their clinical faculty on how they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. And I cannot wait to talk more about giving and receiving feedback. It's
Yeah,
so critical and like we all know, it's so hard. It's so hard.
yeah, it is. It is, but that's where we have to be brave people, right? But that's fun because you see people make so much progress. Um, Anything else that you're thinking about the first week before we talk about next time?
I think something that I always forget is people's phone numbers.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
I
true.
am the worst about like having them written in my notepad, but not actually having them so that I can quickly dial them. And so not only like a contact at the school, but often who is someone else that I know is here today that I might need to reach out to.
Yeah.
I was always really in awe of my colleagues who would like find time to have lunch together real quick, or they would like debrief together. Like the way that they would find time when I was a new clinical faculty, I remember being like, oh, I wish I would have thought of that, you know?
Right.
And so, like, I think that starts with having other people's numbers. So you can be like, my students really need to debrief with another group today. Want to get together?
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, I've never even done that. That sounds fun
Yeah,
though.
absolutely. So,
Um,
I'm
yeah,
I'm so glad we could chat about this. I mean, it's getting us ready for next week. That's why I love talking about this because it really helps us get in that mindset.
me too. Yeah, it really does. It helps me. If I talk about it, I'm going, okay, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Um, Next time we're gonna talk about we're gonna loop back to a couple of those episodes where we were gonna talk about some special circumstances like giving medications, or what happens when someone has a syncopal episode or
Yeah.
doesn't show up, right? And excitingly, we're getting questions from people. So we've got some questions that we can start to kind of collect and answer too. So um, yeah, it's going to be a fun semester of teaching in scrubs.
Absolutely. Looking
Okay.
forward to it.
Yeah, I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.